Folks, the AM show is sponsored by Waylead Properties. And now let's get into the details of the AM news. President John Dramani Mahama and the President of the Czech Republic have weighed in on the tariff impositions by U.S. President Donald J. Trump. Now, President Mahama urged the U.S. to consider the global interest rather than just its own. And the Czech President, Petr Pavel, described the U.S. move to impose such broad tariffs without negotiations as unfortunate. And he urged the U.S. to rethink its approach.
Behind me is the Czech Air Force One aircraft that carried the President of Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, here to Ghana. He stepped out of the aircraft at exactly 12:15 and then proceeded to exchange pleasantries with the Ghanaian delegation here led by the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra. Also present here was the Foreign Affairs Minister for Ghana, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa.
Later in the afternoon, a guard of honor was mounted for the visiting Czech president. This was followed by a closed-door meeting where bilateral discussions were held. Present at the meeting were the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra, Foreign Affairs Minister, Finance Minister, the Health Minister, and other top government officials. The two leaders then addressed the press. President Mahama commended the Czech Republic for supporting Ghana's health sector, including the construction of 12 40-bed capacity hospitals and other facilities for hospital staff. He raised the issue of the 50 Bridges program, which has stalled due to the debt exchange program.
We also signed a memorandum of understanding on political consultation, a bilateral air services agreement, also known as Air Transport Agreement between Ghana and the Czech Republic. It is our hope that the implementation of these MOUs will reinvigorate and spearhead cooperation in various sectors between our two countries.
The President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel, said the government has been working on increasing its presence and cooperation on the continent, including Ghana. President John Mahama and the President of the Czech Republic weighed in on the tariff impositions by U.S. President Donald Trump. President Mahama urged the U.S. to consider global interest rather than just its own.
Ghana got slapped with 10%, which is the lowest in the tariffs that were rolled out. But a country like Lesotho got slapped with 46%. So it has very severe implications for everybody. And I believe that a multilateral world serves us all better than unilateral world, where people just take decisions based on only their country's interests. We must look at the broader global partnerships and the global interests rather than just our parochial national interest.
The Czech President, Petr Pavel, describes the U.S. move to impose such broad tariffs without negotiation as unfortunate. He urged the U.S. to rethink its approach.
Let me start with a general statement. I think imposing tariffs in such a brutal way really doesn't help either side. It will not help the situation in Africa, but it will not help situation in Europe, Asia, and even United States. I really think that we have to collectively address the United States to rethink this approach.
The minority is slamming government over what it calls a weak and dismissive response to the looming threats of U.S. trade tariffs, with Ghana recording a $40 million trade surplus in 2024. The country now faces a 10% tariff hike, putting gains under the African Growth and Opportunity Act at risk. After a high-level meeting with U.S. Ambassador Virginia Palmer, she told Joy News that further dialogue is needed. But Deputy Trade Minister Samson Ahi says President Mahama has ordered swift action, including working with AFTA and African trade ministers to push back on the tariffs.
Window of diplomacy, and so we also want to take advantage. In fact, Trump himself said that he is open to negotiations, is open to discussions. We are exploring all avenues. There is a collective approach that is being championed by the AFTA, and as a sovereign state too, we also have the right to negotiate on our own. And so if we are negotiating on our own, that is where we will lift the discussions to the higher level or at the governmental level. If you compare the advantages that earned by Ghanaians as against the US, we will lose as against the US market.
Still on the tariff matter, an economist, Kwame Pianim, has described the 10% tariff imposed on Ghana's exports as a wake-up call that should not be ignored. Speaking to Joy News at a book launch, Pianim believes this development should prompt an urgent shift in the country's export strategies. Mamavi Sefakote brings you more in this report.
Ghana is now at the center of a tariff dispute following the United States decision to impose a 10% levy on its exports. At a book launch, an economist, Kwame Pianim, spoke to Joy News, emphasizing that this tariff should be seen as a wake-up call for African leaders to reassess and realign their country's export policies.
I think that we should just take it as a wake-up call so that we redirect our policies to make sure that we have food security and that our exports are competitive. We diversify our export basis. You know, what is happening in the world, I think the whole multilateral system, rule-based laws are being undermined. And I think that every country has to look up and say, what do I do to protect my citizens?
Pianim further noted that while change may not happen immediately, it is too early to expect any significant policy shift from the Mahama-led administration.
And he just arrived, and as I said, we should encourage him. You know, if you take a look at the 35 million Ghanaians, or 36 who are alive, he's the only person who can reset the agenda, okay? He's been there before. Parliamentarian, the private sector, president, vice president, and so forth. So he knows us inside out. He can reset it. He doesn't need us, the electorate. He only has one term. And therefore, what we have to do is to pray for him, that he has the personal courage to reset the agenda.
Meanwhile, Peter Penny Anaman, author of Echoing the Voice of Peace, reflected on his motivation for writing the book. He explained that the younger generation who never met Kofi Annan could benefit from learning about his legacy in nation building. And
one, it will take the message of the legend Kofi Annan to the people, especially those who never met him. We have the Gen Zs who never heard of, Kofi Annan. So that will help to send a message to them. And looking at our even secondary schools, you see chaos everywhere, like you ask yourself, why all this? But I believe that if they get this message, it will inform their comportment, and we can be assured of peaceful, future. Because if the youth of today are fighting among themselves and shooting each other, then when they become politicians, where the tension is high, what do you expect? You understand? So it's better we approach them with the message now, before it's too late, so that when we are older, we are resting under our summer hats. Outside, we are sure that we are safe because the youth there are informed, and they will ensure that we die in peace.
Kwame Pianim further emphasized that a wake-up call has been sounded, and it's now up to policymakers to respond decisively to the changing shifts in the tariffs. Mama Vise Fakulte's report read to you.
In other stories, the Okada Riders Association has rejected government's proposal to restrict the legal age of commercial motor riders, popularly known as Okada riders, to at least 25 years. The provision to limit eligibility of riders is part of the new legislative instrument being drafted to amend the existing Road Traffic Regulation 2012, LI 2180. James Aveji has been interacting with some of them and filed this report.
Apart from the many proposals in the new LI to legalize the use of motorbike for commercial purposes, including the call for motor riders to operate under some form of association, one controversial proposal is for the restriction of the age of Okada riding to at least 25 years, which has sparked some debate among Okada riders. Let's have a conversation with them on what some of them think about this and other issues that have been raised in this new LI. What's your name?
Ali Abdurazak.
You have indicated earlier that you disagree with the government proposal.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the age above 25 going, so that one, the plenty of us is under, because some of us is 20 and then 18. So, like if they say 25 and above, some of us will not work, they will not do the work. So that one, so we are begging the government to do it like 18 and above.
From 18 years?
Yeah, and above.
But the concern is that some of the 18 or less than the 25 are not matured, and that's why we have quite a number of accidents on our roads. What about that?
That one, it depends, because even you can be more than, you can be 25 or 30, but you are riding carelessly, you can cause accident. So for that one, I can say, if you are careful, you know, cause accidents.
Okay, I see. Let me speak to another rider here. What's your name, sir?
Abdul Walid is my name.
I mean, what do you think of this? You agree with government, or you think that it should be reduced, as your friend is saying?
I disagree with the government, though.
Why?
Because the reason is, we the hustlers, a lot of us start from 18 and above. So if they say 25 and above, you know, maybe out of 100, 50% will be qualified and 50% will be sitting in the house. Okay. So that one to unemployment is still a problem. So if they said 25 and above, it won't work. It won't help us. A lot of us are completed SS around 18, and if you complete and then you don't have anything to do, and your parents will not have anything to support you, you have to come out yourself by the age of 18 and above. So if they say 25, so where are you supposed to be doing from 18 to 25? Within that gap, you know, there's a problem somewhere. There should be, maybe if I'm not having anything to do, I can decide to take other wayward too, who does not support.
So you think that if they do that, those who are 25, less than 25, they will add up to the unemployment rate?
Yes, that one too, it helps. Because a lot of us are less than 25. I can say 80% are less than 25. So if they say they should take it from 25 going, it won't support.
Okay. What's your proposal? What age?
Mine is around 27, 28.
You want them to bring it down, or they should send it up?
They should do it around maybe from 18 to
from 18.
From 18 and above, because that's the maximum age. Okay. Maturity age is 18, so they should just take it that way.
But you promise that whatever it will be, if it is reduced, you would ride carefully on the road to cut down the accident.
That one, it depends. So the carelessness you can prevent everything, but a lot can protect it by legalizing it and then setting certain rules and regulations. If you go by it, then fine. If you don't go by it, then you face the consequences. So for me, it depends the kind of rider you are. Just not everybody that is careless, but the careless, it doesn't matter whether you are young or age, you're grown up. So some people decide to be careless, and no matter what you do, they will still be careless. Okay. So that one, it doesn't, like, it's not just.
But you know, the indication we are getting from them is that if government should reduce the age and pass this, they are ready to observe all the regulations or the law that will come out of that LI. From Circle here in Accra, my name is James Savage reporting for Joy News.
Rising temperatures across Ghana are not just a concern for people. They're now claiming the lives of poultry birds in alarming numbers. In the Greater Accra region, farmers are counting their losses as unexplained bird deaths sweep through the flocks, threatening livelihoods and food security. But as the heat intensifies, so does the response. A Nigerian NGO, LIFA, has stepped in with training and hope, equipping poultry farmers with new tools to beat the heat and save the birds. Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin tells us more in today's Climate Focus report.
Rising temperatures linked to changing weather patterns are pushing bears and their farmers to the edge. Heat stress is taking a toll. Farmers report mysterious deaths, reduced egg production, and mounting financial losses.
We keep 200 birds. That they were all fine, they were eating well, and they were growing well. All of a sudden, they started dying one after the other.
For Esther Andor, a farm manager at Dorothy's Garden of Eden Farm, the nightmare began in January 2024.
Then a day came, about 50 of them died. We didn't know the reason why that happened. So we called someone and consulted, and the person advised us to increase their water and also give them some antibiotic. It could be a kind of disease that is affecting them. So we did that, but nothing changed.
Like Esther, dozens of farmers across Accra and other places have experienced sudden poultry deaths.
A cousin of mine divided the pen into two, up and down. And that was the last Salah time. Just one day in the afternoon, he lost about 53 birds, just like that.
But hope has come. The Livestock Industry Foundation for Africa, LIFA, has stepped in. They train 200 poultry farmers on managing heat stress, from better housing design to specialized nutrition. Professor Adebukola Olufemilayo Lala is a researcher with LIFA.
I was saying earlier that some of the solution is you have a good, well-ventilated building, and your cooling system should be effective in terms of providing cool water, cool clean water, increasing your water points, the water trunk during heat stress, then reducing the number of animals you place per space. If you have been placing like 10 per 1 meter scale, reduce it so that they can have enough air to circulate among them. Then we have different nutritional strategies too that we, like using of electrolytes, the energy content, reducing it, then using of amino acid to supplement for protein levels. We have dual feeding. We have different systems that we can giving pelletized food instead of mash. So there are so various of these systems.
Experts recommend keeping bears within the thermoneutral zone between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. When bears overheat, they eat less, grow slower, and often die suddenly. Akosia Ajimai is an agricultural extension officer at La Nkwantana Medina Municipal Assembly.
So on Thursday, I went to see a farmer on my usual rounds, and he complained of his poultry, his ducks dying. And well, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't have an idea about what is happening. So I told him I would consult the veterinary officer to see what's happening. But when I came here and I heard about the heat stress, I realized it could be because where the ducks were kept, there is no shade. So it's like they are under the direct sunlight. So I realized that, okay, it could be heat stress that is killing them. So right now, I'll be visiting him again on Thursday, and I'll be recommending to him to put up a shade for the birds, and so that we will be able to monitor and see if it's actually heat stress or something else. But from what I have heard, I believe strongly that it could be heat stress.
Farmers like Almiyao Abdurrahim now realize the power of climate-smart poultry management.
We ascribe some of the challenges to other problems, viral attacks, viral or bacteria challenges on the farms. But practically, some of the problems we face on the farms is just as a result of heat. And then managing heat on the farm could solve some of these problems. But we spend a lot of money in buying antibiotics and then thinking that it is an infection that we need to resolve. But it is just a problem of heat, and when properly managed, those problems can be easily solved.
As the weather patterns change, adapting farming practices is not a luxury, it is a necessity, and with the right knowledge, poultry farmers can beat the heat and protect their livelihoods. A report by Mohammed Nuruddin.
That takes us into our business update now with Benjamin Akaku.
Well, let's get into our stories now. And the Association of Ghana Industries is urging businesses to explore other markets to withstand the shocks that would come following revelations that all products exported to the U.S. under AGOA will attract 10% tax. According to the chief executive of the AJI, Seth Chum Akwabwa, it's imperative for businesses to enhance the competitiveness of their products in order to enhance acceptability in other markets.
If you are paying interest rates of 30 to 35% on monies you borrow from the banks, all this adds to the cost of production and cost of doing business. And when your cost of doing business is high, your price will be high. So when the tariff is slapped on it, it becomes even more expensive. So the way out is that how do we create conducive environment? How do we ensure that Ghanaian companies are able to produce at competitive price? When we do that, our product becomes very competitive in every market. And in that sense, you diversify your market portfolios. You don't only go to the US. I know Ghanaian products are not only exported to the US, but you can deepen your market arrangement in other countries. So Europe, the rest of Africa, Asia, and the rest, if your products are competitive, good quality, good packaging, you can get market in all these areas so that your portfolio or the amount of goods you are sending to the US market, even if it's affected, others will compensate for it. So for me, the best solution is that let's look at other markets. But in doing so, let's look at ways of making production costs lower. And that's where you become competitive in those markets. Otherwise, it's just, if you just pay a lip service to it and you don't get your products produced at a cheaper price, a cheaper cost and a cheaper price, you are not competitive. Once you are competitive, anywhere in the world, your goods can go there.
Now, advisory board member at the Center for Financial Literacy Education and chief executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewua, has underscored the relevance of financial literacy being key in fostering development in the nation's economy and among individuals. He spoke to Joy Business ahead of the National Financial Awareness and Financial Literacy Conference slated for April the 12th, 2025.
How did we get into DDEP? Because you said our debt level got to unsustainable levels. But what we don't consider is how did we get there? It starts from the household, the individual level, to the household unit, to the business, and then it aggregates into the larger community or larger, what you call the macro. So as banks, we are very much interested in ensuring that the people we deal with, and even those whom we do not deal with, the average person on the street, understand that it is critical that as long as you are using the Ghana cedi to undertake any activity, it's important you understand the business and the language of finance. The basic things. As Peter said, you don't build wealth, like a day and night matter. It's something that you plan and execute over a period. So it is critical that if we want as a country to have our financial freedom, it starts with us. It starts with our business community. And we have to all work to gain the necessary skill that will migrate all of us from where we are to the point where we become financially independent.
Yeah, you brought up the subject of the DDEP. I just want you to tell us some of the financial mistakes people make that, result in some of these outcomes that we've seen recently.
The number one is spending what you don't have. And apart from spending on what you don't have, what are you spending on? And we see that a lot reflect on us as individuals. As bankers, we see people who are overstretching themselves. There are people whose salary hit the account
and you see pam, debit. By the middle of the month, everything is gone. What are we spending on? And when we are spending, do we consider the expenditure objective? Are we spending to invest? Are we spending to save? Or are we spending to consume?
And that's it for the business update. Here's my baton, and I'm handing it back to Sweetie Amochi.
Thank you, Ben. And that's a wrap for the AM News Bulletin on the show. Coming up next is the news review. We have 3 doctors joining us, Dr. Jabri Mohammed, Dr. Kwame Pianim, and Dr. Abeidu. Please stay. We'll be back in a bit.